All right, y'all. Yesterday we talked about sentence fragments, and we said that there were two types of sentences that are fragments. One type would be a sentence that's missing. What two parts do we need to have a complete sentence? What two parts? We need a what and a what? Yes, right here. Well, that's the one part. What's the two parts we need? Oh, a subject and a predicate. You got to have both. But then there's another way that you can have a fragment is when you have a dependent clause, right? A dependent clause. So when one of these subordinating conjunctions is at the beginning of a sentence, what you have is a dependent clause, right? It's dependent on the rest of the sentence, right? It's depending on an independent clause, right? Look at me. An independent clause could be something like, I close the door. It's independent. It stands on its own. It doesn't need anybody else. It's got its independence. But a dependent clause is dependent on something else to make it whole, right? Yeah. So, if I came in here, Drew, and said this, you ready? Let me blow this big guy up here, and let us pretend just for a moment that this is how the sentence is starting right there. You ready, Drew? Before I close the door, if I just ended it right there, before I close the door, and I looked at you guys, you would be saying what?
What happened before?
What happened? Right, what happened before? Now listen. Right now, before I close the door as it stands is a dependent clause. It's a dependent clause because it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And that subordinating conjunction is before. Okay? Before I close the door, you would have a comma here. Before I close the door, now how about this, Drew? You ready? I'm going to ask you a question here. Before I close the door, make this a little bigger. Oh. Before I close the door, I blew my nose. I blew my nose. All right, so now look. Ready? Before I close the door, I blew my nose. Let me ask you something, AJ. Put AJ on the spot again. I blew my nose. Is that a complete sentence? Yes, because it has a subject and a predicate. It is also considered an independent clause. An independent clause is nothing more than a complete sentence. It's independent. It's complete. It stands on its own. But before I close the door, that's a dependent clause. It depends on an independent clause or a complete sentence to make it whole. Do you understand? Yeah. Here are the subordinating conjunctions that you need to look out for. If a sentence should start with after, before, if, once, since, or until, if it starts out that way, you know you're looking at a dependent clause, right? You're looking at one. If all you see is the dependent clause, what you have is a fragment. But for the sake of argument, today, we're going to work on identifying subordinate conjunctions, right? So, it says right here, it says, a subordinate conjunction helps to show how one part of the sentence relates to another, right? When the conjunction is between two simple sentences, no comma is needed before the conjunction. So let's take a look. Ready for this? It says, my dog ran outside. Simple sentence, period, right? My dog, subject, predicate, ran outside. I closed the door. Subject, close the door as a predicate. Those are two very simple sentences. Can't we join them together with a subordinate conjunction? Yeah. My dog ran outside before I closed the door. You don't need a comma before the subordinate conjunction because it comes between two simple sentences. You don't. Ready? How about this? It says, read the sentence, draw a line under both simple sentences, and circle the conjunction. You're not going to do that. You're going to do this. I went to look for my dog. Okay, guess what? I want you to identify the subject. I went to look for my dog. What did I do? I went to look for my dog. That's the predicate. And then we're going to circle the subordinating conjunction after I grabbed her leash. I grabbed her leash. Is that a complete sentence? Yeah, because it has a subject and a predicate. I want you to identify the subject and a predicate in both simple sentences, and I want you to circle the subordinating conjunction. Can you guys handle that?
Yeah.
All right. Now let's look at the next page. All right. So this guy here says, look at this. Look at this. Hey, Drew, if it were just this right here, what would that be? Help him out. Help him out, Ryder. Go.
A dependent clause.
It's a dependent clause. Yeah, it's a dependent clause. If I just said to you, Drew, because Hoon just moved to the United States and I left it there, is that a complete sentence? No, it's a dependent clause. It's dependent on the rest. He has never celebrated Thanksgiving. So let's see what it says. It says a subordinating conjunction helps show how part of the sentence relates to the other. When the conjunction is at the beginning of the sentence, a comma is needed between the two parts. And also, when the subordinating conjunction is at the beginning of the sentence, it is creating what kind of clause?
Dependent.
A what?
A dependent clause.
A dependent clause. Can a dependent clause stand by itself?
No.
No, it needs the independent clause. Now, let me ask you something. Let's get somebody else in the mix here. Casey. Ready? Casey, right here. Is this right here a complete sentence? He has never celebrated Thanksgiving. Is that complete? Yes. Why, Casey? It does have a subject and a predicate. And because it's a complete sentence, what kind of clause is it?
Independent.
It's independent. It stands by itself, right? All right, here we go. It says down here, read the sentence, draw a line under both simple sentences, and circle the conjunction. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I want you to circle the dependent clause, and I want you to underline the independent clause and show me the subject and the predicate. So look, when Hoon's school closed for 2 days in November, is that a complete sentence all by itself?
No.
No, it's dependent. Oh, and then I want you to put a square around the subordinating conjunction. Okay? When Hoon's school closed for 2 days in November, he was surprised. He was surprised, we're going to underline because that's an independent clause. And then we found the subject and predicate in that. You got it?
Yep.
Let's do the next one. Who can do it? Who can go to the board and rock it out like a rock star? A rocky rock star. PJ, do it. Boom. I'm going to do the annotate. I'm going to put you on the pen. Yep, go. Do it. You're on. Grab the pen up there. All right, you ready? It says, while they made paper turkeys in art class, he learned the history of Thanksgiving. You do the whole thing. Go. Oh, yes. Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. Wow, PJ. PJ did this. Here's what he did. He circled the dependent clause, and that is, while they made paper turkeys in art class. Can that stand alone? While they made paper turkeys in art class? No, because it starts with a subordinating conjunction. All right, and then he did this. He underlined the independent clause, and he said, he is the subject, learned the history of Thanksgiving as the predicate. Does PJ get an A+?
Yes.
Can you guys handle this?
Yes.
All right, that is Subordinating Conjunctions 19 and 20. Tadero out.